good to have you join us on Global News and Zuma Nigeria. The headline says several killed in fire in Vietnam's Hanoi. Explosions hit Russian naval services in Crimea. Putin and Kim meet in Russian spaceport. China key to foiling likely Russian-North Korea arms deal. And India's Kerala shuts after Nipah deaths. According to reports, numerous people have been killed in a huge blaze at an apartment block in Vietnam's capital, Hanoi, with operations underway to rescue survivors. On Wednesday, the fire broke out at about midnight local time but had been contained by 2 a.m. reports said. It said lots of people had died in the blaze that engulfed a 9-story building which was home to 150 people and located down a narrow alley in a residential area southwest of Hanoi. Some 70 people were rescued from the block, with 54 of them rushed to hospital, it said. Authorities have yet to confirm the number of deaths. The VN Express International website said hospitals had confirmed at least 11 deaths. Many of the victims included children. Rescue efforts were ongoing, with firefighters equipped with horses and ladders at the scene by night, while a column of thick, dark smoke billowed from the building during the day. Vietnam has experienced several deadly fires in recent years, often at entertainment venues like popular karaoke bars. A year ago, a blaze in a 3-story karaoke bar in commercial hub Ho Chi Minh City killed 32 people. As many as 17 people were also wounded in that fire, with the owner arrested on charges linked to breaching fire prevention regulations. In the aftermath of the tragedy, the Prime Minister ordered an inspection of all high-risk venues. 13 people died in 2018 after an apartment complex also in Ho Chi Minh City caught fire. Another 13 died in 2016 in a karaoke venue in Hanoi following a fire. Still on fire outbreak, a Ukrainian air raid on a naval shipyard in Sevastopol in Russian-occupied Crimea has triggered a large fire and wounded at least 24 people, the Moscow-installed governor of the port city said. Mikhail Rasfoyasev said Ukraine carried out a missile attack in the early hours of Wednesday morning and Russian air defenses had attempted to repel the incoming projectiles. And all emergency services are working on the site. There is no danger to civilian objects in the city, he said. Sevastopol is the largest city in Crimea and a main port where the Russian Black Sea Fleet is based. Kyiv officials have vowed to retake Crimea from Russian control, and Ukraine has ramped up air and sea attacks on the peninsula in recent weeks. Several Russian seaports, or reports rather, said the Sevastopol shipyard, which carries out construction and repair on the ships and submarines of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, was on fire. The size of the fire and scale of damage at the shipyard was not instantly known, though footages showed large flames in the darkness, immersing what seemed to be large port infrastructure. Ukraine's Kyiv Independent said the attack took place at approximately 3 a.m. local time. Furthermore, on Wednesday morning, a Russian drone attack on the Dunabe River port of Izmail in Ukraine's Odessa region caused a fire and civilian injuries, the regional governor said. Several groups of strike drones were directed to the Izmail district, Odessa Governor Oleg Kipa said, describing the Russian air raid on the civilian port as the action of terrorists. Damage to port and other civil infrastructure was recorded. Rescuers are putting out the fire, Kipa said, adding that 6 civilians were injured and taken to the hospital, with 3 in serious condition and 3 others in moderate condition. Located on the border with Romania, Ukraine's Dunabe River ports have become a major export path for Ukrainian agricultural products following Russia's withdrawal from a United Nations brokered grain deal in July and Moscow's renewed blockade of the country's Black Sea ports. Away from fire accidents, now Kim Jong-un, North Korean leader, has commenced his summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin as the Vukshiny Cosmodrome, a couple of hours after Pyongyang fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles off its east coast. According to reports, Kim arrived at the Cosmodrome in Russia's eastern Amur region on Wednesday morning, minutes after Putin. The Kim-Putin talks are anticipated to cover potential weapon sales, with the North Korean leader accompanied by top officials from the military and the weapons industry. As Putin showed Kim around the Cosmodrome, he said that all issues were up for discussion and that Russia will help North Korea build satellites. The summit offers a chance for Putin to secure much required weapons for Russia's war in Ukraine, and Kim is anticipated to press for economic aid and military technology in return. Not long before the meeting started, South Korea and Japan said they detected the launch of two short-range ballistic missiles from the east coast of North Korea. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said it detected the launches from an area in or around Sunan, just north of Pyongyang, between about 11:43 a.m. and 11:53 a.m., and that it was analyzing the data. Our military has strengthened surveillance and vigilance in preparation for further launches while maintaining full readiness by closely cooperating with the U.S., the JCAS said in a statement. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Horikazu Matsuno said, according to a report, that Japan had lodged a protest against North Korea through diplomatic channels in Beijing. The two missiles fell in the sea outside Japan's exclusive economic zone EEZ, he added. An expert on North Korean military and politics has said China is the key to preventing a potential arms deal between Moscow and Pyongyang, as Russian President Vladimir Putin and his counterpart Kim Jong-un appear poised to meet for meetings in Russia's Far East. On Tuesday morning, Kim arrived on board his armored train at the Russian border, crossing the frontier at Russia's Kherson city en route to the meeting, where the Russian leader is likely to seek access to stockpiles of North Korean ammunition, which Moscow badly needs to feed its war in Ukraine. The two leaders find themselves in changed circumstances since they last met in 2019, said Fyodor Terestitsky, a historian of North Korea and leading researcher at Kookmin University's Institute for Korean Studies in South Korea's capital, Seoul. Both leaders have items to trade, advantages to gain, and pressures at home that might encourage them to align their strategic interests more closely when they meet in Russia. However, any agreement will be an alliance of convenience, and one in which China, being the biggest trading partner as well as Moscow and Pyongyang's most powerful political patron, will tactically have great influence in deciding the outcome, Terestitsky said. While North Korea's Western-facing media output may take a strong position in backing of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the media North Koreans consume has remained silent on the war, Terestitsky said. Numerous North Koreans may not even know that Russia has attacked its neighbor, he added. Now on health matters, authorities have shut down some schools and offices and declared over 7 villages as containment zones in the southern state of Kerala after it recorded 2 deaths from the sporadic and deadly brain-damaging Nipah virus. An adult and a child are still infected and in hospital, and over 130 people have so far been tested for the virus, which is transmitted to humans through direct contact with bodily fluids of infected bats, pigs, or other people, an official from Kerala's health ministry said on Wednesday. 1 person died this month and another death occurred on August 30th, while 2 more people from the same family, including 1 child, were the ones infected and in hospital. Authorities declared containment zones in 7 villages of the Kozhikode district, closing down schools, banks, and other institutions. 3 teams from the federal government, including the National Institute of Virology, were planned to arrive in Kerala later on Wednesday for more testing, said the official, who spoke on condition of anonymity. In 1999, the deadly brain-damaging Nipah virus was first identified during an outbreak of illness affecting big farmers and others in close contact with pigs in Malaysia and Singapore. This is the 4th Nipah outbreak in Kerala since 2018. Investigation published in May identified parts of Kerala as among the places most at risk worldwide for outbreaks of bat viruses. Extensive deforestation and urbanization have brought people and wildlife into close contact. Moving now to Africa, Morocco, earthquake survivors search for loved ones. It has been 5 days since the magnitude 6.8 earthquake shredded through the mountainous regions around Marrakesh, Morocco, and Abdel Abed's daughter, 9-year-old Shaima, is still buried under the rubbles. He still hopes she may be alive, a family member explains, and he works with almost robotic energy as excavation efforts continue in Narte in the High Atlas Mountains. His wife was pulled dead from the rocks yesterday. Abed himself had been rescued on Saturday, the relative says. Nearby, a small team of Spanish firefighters rise from their launch to help in the search. They have sent the sniffer dogs home. Dogs can only smell the living, one explains. Relief efforts in the region around Marrakesh are only just beginning to ramp up. Morocco's King Mohammed VI visited the city on Tuesday, lending his prestige to the efforts. Outside of the city, in Amis Amis, international aid is announcing itself in the form of a camp. Along rows of neatly ordered tents, rescue teams from the United Kingdom, Qatar, Israel and other countries debate how to navigate the devastated terrain. Medical aid clinics constructed quickly from flat packs now dot many of the often single-track roads that line the mountains. In one, Dr. Ismail Matsari, 26, prepares for the patients he believes will come once they hear of the clinic. However, even with this nursing team, his resources are limited. The most serious cases will need to be transported to the University Hospital in Marrakesh, some 2 hours away, he said. The Moroccan government has promised an extensive rebuilding program, with many residents likely to be offered new houses built to modern standards. Details are scarce, but the logistics are daunting. Miles of winding, perilous roads must be widened. Houses that have stood for centuries must now be reimagined and renovated in line with current seismic retrofit standards. The changes are long overdue, Chef Larsen Bogi, who grew up in the Atlas Mountains, says, but something will be lost. Many of the survivors, though, are just grateful to be alive. In Anani, 34 people died during the earthquake. 7 remain in hospital. The rest tussle over 8 deliveries in the makeshift camp. This region will take years to recover, experts warn, but for many of its inhabitants, the damage may be permanent. And finally, on global news, more than 5,000 dead in Libya floods. Local authorities said on Tuesday more than 5,000 people were killed and no less than 10,000 were missing in Libya after heavy rains caused 2 dams to burst close to the coastal city of Derna, damaging much of the city and carrying the whole neighborhoods into the sea. Libya, a North African nation broken by a war, was ill-prepared for the storm called Daniel, which set across the Mediterranean Sea to batter its coastline. The country is administered by 2 rival governments, complicating rescue and aid efforts, and its infrastructure had been poorly maintained after over a decade of political chaos. At least 5,200 in the city of Derna alone people died, said Tariq Al-Khazar, a spokesman for the Interior Ministry of the government that oversees eastern Libya, said according to reports. At least 20,000 people were displaced. Many more are missing, and the death toll is likely to rise in the coming days. The flooding buckled buildings, sank vehicles and blocked roads, impeding access to the most stricken areas. Bodies are lying everywhere in the sea, in the valleys, under the buildings. Hikem Abu Chukot, Minister of Civil Aviation in the administration that controls the east, said after visiting Derna, a city of about 125,000 inhabitants, "I am not exaggerating when I say that 25% of the city has disappeared," he said. Other eastern cities, including Libya's second biggest city, Benghazi, were also hit by the storm. Temur Ramadan, head of the delegation of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, said the death toll will be huge. "We can confirm from our independent sources of information that the number of missing people is hitting 10,000 so far," he said, according to reports. The United Nations Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said emergency response teams have been mobilized to help on the ground. Turkey and other countries rushed aid to Libya. Analysts said the nation's woes, political division, economic instability, corruption, environmental degradation, and dilapidated infrastructure seemed to coalesce in one catastrophe when the dam south of the city collapsed. The flooding came days after an earthquake in Morocco, another North African nation, killed over 2,900 people. In part 2, we will get more stories, but from Nigeria with Alheri Moses, but in a moment. But before then, I have highlights of major stories. Several killed in fire in Vietnam's Hanoi. Explosions hit Russian naval services in Crimea. Putin and Kim meet in Russian spaceport. China key to foiling likely Russian-North Korean arms deal, and India's Kerala shots after Nipah death. Do stay with us.
Welcome back and thanks for joining me as I bring you stories from Nigeria. In the news, Labour threatens indefinite strike. Only just 1 week after leading a 2-day nationwide warning strike on Tuesday, the organized Labour threatened to start an indefinite strike should the federal government fail to meet its demands at the end of a 21-day ultimatum, which will expire in approximately 1 week's time. The workers' union said the proposed strike was essential following the failure of the federal government to provide palliatives to ease the hardships of Nigerians. The Nigerian Labour Congress said the industrial action, which may begin any day from next week, would lead to an indefinite shutdown of commercial and economic activities across the country. On Tuesday, the National Assistant General Secretary of NLC, Christopher Onyeka, said FG was wrong to share a bag of rice to a dozen Nigerians, while reportedly giving 100 million palliative to each member of the National Assembly. On September 1st, the union had handed down a 21-day ultimatum to the federal government over the delay in sharing of palliatives, saying it might compel to declare an indefinite labor action if its demands were not made. If the federal government failed to provide the appropriate responses to our demands, we encourage you to maintain your steadfast resolve, the same passion and determination that fueled this warning strike will be crucial if we find ourselves compelled to embark on an indefinite nationwide strike, the labor body said in a letter to the federal government. To demonstrate its seriousness, the NLC mobilized workers for a 2-day warning strike on September 5th and 6th, partly shutting social and economic activities in several states with banks, ministries, agencies, and departments closed to the public in some states. The NLC leadership has said the action was in preparation for a total shutdown which will begin at the expiration of the ultimatum next week. Among other demands, the NLC and the Trade Union Congress were asking for wage rewards, implementation of palliatives, tax exemptions and allowances to the public sector workers, and a review of the minimum wage. Though the federal government made a commitment to reorganize the framework for engagement with organized labor on palliatives, the 8-week time frame set for the conclusion of the process expired in August with no action whatsoever. Since June 19th, President Bola Tinubu has set up the Presidential Steering Committee and various subcommittees to deliberate the framework to be adopted on the palliatives. The subcommittees had been created to implement federal government palliative package in areas such as cash transfers, social investment programs, cost of governance, energy and mass transit and housing. This was a fallout of the President's closed-door section with the leadership of the NLC and the TUC during a nationwide protest by the organized labor. Army sit-at-home ends in Southeast. Lieutenant General Turet Lakwaja, the Chief of Army Staff, has said the sit-at-home order enforced by the indigenous people of Biafra across the Southeast state has ended. In August 2021, IPOB began the sit-at-home order to demand the release of its leader, Nnamdi Kanu, from prison. The order affected the economy in the region and resulted in the loss of lives and properties of residents in the Southeast. Speaking at the COAS Joint Second and Third Quarters Conference in Abuja on Tuesday, Lakwaja said the danger ended as a result of intensified efforts of its men and collaboration with significant stakeholders. Lakwaja also revealed that the activities of Boko Haram and other terrorist activities have been reduced, adding that residents of the troubled state had started commercial activities in the states. He also said the Nigerian Army has mobilized some special forces units to address insecurity across the country. He vowed that under his watch, the welfare of troops and the families would be given priority. Finally, First Lady rolls out 500 million aid to Plateau IDPs. Remi Tinubu, the First Lady, has affirmed that the diversity of Nigeria remains a great strength. She said it by living in peace and love that the great potential of the nation will be actualized. According to a statement by her media aide, Busola Kukuye, the First Lady was speaking at the disbursement of relief and resettlement packages to 500 displaced victims of communal clashes and conflicts in 6 local government areas of Plateau State. It was an opportunity for the First Lady to re-emphasize the need for food production in line with President Bola Tinubu's declaration of a state of emergency on food production. The Plateau State Governor, Barrister Caleb Mutfwang, in his remarks, commended the First Lady for demonstrating true motherhood. He noted that despite the state being governed by an opposition party, Senator Oluremi Tinubu looked beyond this to bring relief and succor to the grieving families. A total of 500 families drawn from Mangu, Riom, Berkin-Ladi, Bassa, Bokos, and Joseph local government areas of the state got 1 million each to help them return to their communities and rebuild homes. And that's the news. Thanks for watching. I am Alheri Moses. Have a wonderful day.